This is a video response to Professor Anton and ToolTime9901. Somewhat. I found that I was thinking about what I want to say in this video. It's more so just been like my random, rambling, disorganized thoughts that are tangential to their videos, so I'm still giving them credit. I'll link them both down below, and I think they're very worth checking out, because if you like my videos, if you think that they're intelligent and articulate, they're more intelligent and articulate than I am, so I think that they're worth watching and subscribing to. But they're not necessarily directly responses to them. But I'll just talk about what I think and random thoughts I have. Basically what they're talking about are robots in society, like technology developing and machinery taking over the roles of humans for various reasons, which I'm not going to go too far into it. They're both down below. If you have the time, I'd recommend watching their videos. I think it'll give you a lot of the context. Reiterating everything I don't think will do much for anyone, but basically it's how they can potentially take over our role in society doing menial tasks. And one point that Professor Anton brings up that I found very interesting was, is it better for them to be robots because they don't have minds, in a sense? They don't have these possible negative dispositions towards people. One big example he gave is an old person in a nursing home who messes their diaper and someone has to come in and clean it. Now, if that's a person, it's very possible that they had the goal of being very altruistic going into that field. They're like, I'm going to help people in need, I'm going to save them, and it's going to be awesome. The only problem is, after a while of doing it, they become disheartened. They're disillusioned of the world they thought they knew, and they just become hardened of the world, and they don't treat the old people very nice, and they're not very happy with it. Nobody's happy. It doesn't matter what their intentions were. This is why, somewhat sarcastically I suppose, I bring up the point that if there's two people, one person loves humanity and wants everything to be better and world peace, and then the other person who despises humanity and wants them all to be dead, but neither of them act on that initiative or they behave in that proper way, then they're both morally equivalent because they aren't making any difference in the world. They haven't done anything good or bad. They're both neutral. So what's the difference qualitatively? Your behavior doesn't say anything about the way, or your behavior does not reflect your intentions. It does not reflect what you intended to give to the world. So it doesn't matter how good your intentions were going into this field. If that's not reflected by your behavior, then you're not benefiting anyone. By that same token, robots don't have intentions because they don't have minds. So how can you say that they're good or bad? Well, by their actions, because they can treat the people better. They're just very kind, they're very empathetic because they're programmed to be that way. It's in their hard drive. So even though they don't have intentions, they can't be altruistic. They just do what they do, and that ends up being better because they're providing the results that the people want. They're helping the people live through life. And that really does bring up the moral question. Is someone better even if they don't do anything better just because they had the intention to? And from my perspective, like, just being practical, not really. I can't justify that. I don't see how you can say that is and have a good definition of moral or, productive, helping society, mattering in some way. Another point that I believe ToolTime9901 brought up was the idea that we're becoming more and more involved into our phone because there's less risk with that, in a way, because there's less of a chance of us getting hurt or our connection with other people not working out. Like, there's more security. We trust the technology more. And this is a very interesting point, because it's true that when you don't invest in people, you don't get the bad, but there's no chance of getting the good as well. But the interesting thing about that is we tend to not think about not getting the good. We tend to think about not getting the bad, because we tend to think about avoiding bad things more than getting good things. That's just the way our minds work generally. One big example is from a PBS documentary called Money and Medicine, which is about an hour long. I'll link it down below. I think it's worth watching. It helps give you a new perspective on how medicine and medical bills work in America versus many other countries. And one big point they talked about is the way that we have such a strong program against breast cancer, for example. With breast cancer, we have early detection, and we take severe steps towards stopping that. But apparently a lot of doctors recommend against that. They say that's not a good idea because a lot of these people are not in danger. Either we think it's breast cancer, but it's not because it's too early to tell, or it is breast cancer, but they're at an age where the breast cancer will never affect them in their natural life. So the question is, should we still be acting on that? Let's say that 1 in 5 of these early detection cases do threaten the woman's life. And then the other 4 out of 5, they could just like get periodical checkups, see if everything's okay, they check out, and they just go on with their merry day. And the 5th person goes to a checkup like, oh no, it's getting worse, and then they get the medical procedure done. Now, there's a risk with that because you're living your life with breast cancer. There's danger in there, and we like homeostasis. We like things being the same. And if we can just get rid of the breast cancer, we will, because we view it as the safer option. But if you just live, if you get the surgery done and you get this stuff out of you, you don't know whether you were the one person who was going to need that or one of the 4 people who did not need that and could have lived your life fine without it. There's no way to tell, but people are just going to assume that you were the person who needed it. It's availability heuristics, the idea that an idea is more available to you. It comes to the forefront of your mind more quickly, rather. So we tend to think of it as more likely. We hear tons of stories about people surviving breast cancer, but we don't hear stories about people thinking they have breast cancer, waiting it out, and then finding out they didn't need the surgery, so we don't think of that. All 5 people think they're the 1 out of 5 people who needed it, but nobody thinks they're one of the 4 out of 5 that didn't need it. And the same thing goes with relationships, for example. Let's say that 1 out of 5 dating relationships will end terribly, like they cheat on you, or they become obsessive, or abusive, or a control freak, or something terrible. Well, the other 4 out of 5 won't do that. You'll either end on good terms or they'll like get married or something and stay together forever. Now, if 5 people look at the situation and they say, this is scary, it's not worth it, and they don't get into that, they'll avoid the bad, but they'd also avoid the good. But by the same token, they don't notice how they're missing out on the good because it's not to the forefront of their mind. We hear stories about boyfriends beating their girlfriends, or the girlfriend cheated behind the boyfriend's back or something. But how many stories do we hear on the news promulgated about how people just were together and it was good and happy? That doesn't really happen a lot. And that's just a perspective on our mind. Technology allows you to avoid the bad, but it also avoids the good, and I think that's a scary thing. It's a change of perspective that we don't think about, and I think that's worth discussing. What do you think? This is kind of random and off the wall everywhere. Maybe you in the comments, whoever's watching this, can give me a more organized perspective of what I'm saying. I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching and have a good day.